Welcome to another episode of Zero Code. I'm your host, Karkar, the founder and CEO. We're building the ultimate Web3 launchpad that is designed for creative minds. But in the process, we'd like to take the time to educate and share the knowledge. This podcast aims to put the spotlight on the most outstanding innovators and builders in the space, to foster an environment for discovery, engagement, and learning. To discover, together, the latest technological trends from Web3 to the metaverse to artificial intelligence and beyond. We will interview builders, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, hackers, lawyers, and everything in between. In this episode, we're talking to a cultural giant in the Web3 space, Sharon Sciammas. He started his career as a data engineer, working with some of the world's most innovative tech firms from Israel, the USA, and Europe. He's more than a technical engineer, though. He's a Renaissance man. He has also explored the world of social engineering in both liberal and creative arts. He's obsessed with the art form of storytelling to build robust human communities that revolve around a brand. Whether it's commercial or personal, Sharon sees value is the center of everything. As a matter of fact, this is how I got to know Sharon. We both met in the crypto packaged goods community, aka CPG. It's a virtual and physical community of Web3 builders and innovators. From there, I stumbled upon the collective Web3 Labs that Sharon has founded and built. In just under a year, he has built a robust community of 1,000 community members strong across 4 countries in Europe: Madrid, Lisbon, Amsterdam, and Berlin, and they're expanding at light speed. Web3 Lab is centered around giving back to the community. It's where you can meet other Web3 builders, creatives, investors, and blockchain networks even, and hold exciting and engaging hackathons and innovation workshops. Sharon loves to mix mediums between real-life events and digital events. In a nutshell, it's a community of the most forward-thinking and ambitious minds in the space. I really encourage you to get in touch with Sharon and join the community. I put the links in the description box below. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe and share it with your network. It's the only way we can grow, and that is together. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us at the Zero Code podcast. I am super excited to have you. We've been talking for months now, and you're one of those people with an insane passion towards Web3. And this is what I thought, like, you will be the perfect guest. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Sharon?
Wow. So born in Israel, 41, one beautiful wife, 3 incredible kids, one annoying cat, ginger one. The hierarchy is the cat, the kids, and then the wife. He's making the decisions here. Living in Amsterdam in the last almost 7 years. Been working in tech for the last 18 years in engineering, marketing, growth, entrepreneurship. I've done a lot in Israel, the US, Europe, the Ether lately, the Web3. So it's like everywhere, or Telegram is my office. I don't know. Depends how you see it. So that's like briefly history. My passion is about community building, and how do you connect people in a fun and meaningful way. That's what I really love, and that's what I've been doing in the last year. But it was like a big thing for me in the last, I think, 3 years, trying to find out, like, where do you build communities? Because nobody's like, there's no job. Now there are more, but before that, before Web3, nobody's looking for building a community, like a real community. I'm not talking like a forum that you answer questions. So that's my big thing. And part of it is I love to read about community and complexity science, which is part of it, and social movements and human behavior. It's a big part of how you build communities. And copywriting, how you tell stories. So that's like roughly me. Most of the day is like Web Lab, which is the community that we build, and kids and the cat. That's it.
So it comes exactly. Wow. So building communities, that's what really got you into Web3. And I find that really fascinating. So let's get into that. So why Web3? Like, what is the difference between Web3 and Web2? Like, why wasn't it possible, let's say, on Facebook to build communities, or Instagram the same way you could do it today with Web3?
That's a good question. Um, so my Web3 journey started when I saw, I think it was a post somewhere, I don't know, in Israeli newspaper. Somebody bought a picture of an ape for $500,000, and I say, like, just a simple, PNG, JPEG, I don't know. And I was like very curious, like, what is it? Like, why people are doing this? So that's how I started to read about Web3, because before that I heard about blockchain. I'm a data engineer. I was for a few years in analytics. So like blockchain in the end is kind of a database. So, but I wasn't interested, because if you look at it from a database point of view, it's like you don't understand it. So for me, it was the starting point to understand the human behavior of this phenomena. And the more I read about it, I realized the core is community building. And that's why people get around certain projects. And I think if I go back to your question, that was the entry point for Web3, the apes, and why. But when I look at Web 2 or Web 3, or maybe even Web 3 and the rest, Web 3 is the only place right now, I think, especially in business, that community is a necessity. It's not like a nice to have. It's not like wow, we have a community, it's cool. Like if you don't have one, probably your project is not going to be successful. And that's very unique. And if you look at, let's call it, ordinary companies, they don't need the real community. There is no business case to have a community. So when I look at, like, I want to build one, and that was, by the way, another startup that we had, me and my co-founder, and we started doing events. And then I said, okay, I'm doing this kind of Web3. Maybe we'll invite a few people and see. I'm going to talk about the apes and why did it grow. And suddenly 120 people register. And I said, whoa, like nobody knows me in Web3. What's happening here? And we had a really good chat. And we did another one and another one. And I said, okay, this is really interesting, because this is a real sense of community. You need to collaborate in order to be successful. It's open source, which means people are more open for working together to exchange ideas. You don't have it in Web 2 anymore. Suddenly I started to talk to people. The first question was, how can I help you? You don't hear it in Web 2. Like if you call somebody, it's like, what do you want? The whole kind of culture, by the way, of Web 3 is very collaborative, which is also very noisy in a sense. And for me, it was a perfect spot to start exercising my ideas of how do you build communities. And to your question about Facebook and others, Facebook is a platform to communicate with many people. They call it community. The real essence of community is a place where you meet people. That's like the core definition. When you meet people regularly, by the way. And online platforms are very limited to create communities, to be honest, especially if it's only profile picture, you don't know who is the person. And I would say there is a spectrum of like what is a community. On the one hand, you have like people saying, hey, I have an email list, or I have 1,000 followers somewhere, or a Facebook, they call it a community. On the other end of the spectrum, you have religion. And in between, everybody calls it a community. But I think, again, the real essence of what is a community and why I was attracted, suddenly you can bring people in real life. They're going to enjoy it. They want to come more. They see it part of their journey to meet people like them. It's missing. They're looking for belonging. You don't have it in Web 2, period. Like you don't have it. I'm meaning like grassroots. Of course, if you do a summit, everybody will come, and you're a big company like Salesforce, but it's not a community. So again, from my experience working in different places and industries, and that's for me like your answer, like why Web3, how Web3 is basically the culture that enables people to collaborate.
We're talking about like human societies, kind of like an extension to sociology, like, and how humans are evolving the way we socially interact with each other. Like Web2 space brought a lot of great technologies, obviously. Like, you have like Instagram where people are uploading pictures of themselves, and now TikToks with videos, and the world is becoming more connected. One of the things that I've noticed, at least in the Web3 space, that it links people from across the world, from different backgrounds together that previously wouldn't have communicated and previously wouldn't have had like a common like view or a vision on the way to deal. For example, for us, we're a perfect example of this. I'm from Saudi Arabia, you're from Israel, right? So we're from opposite countries. Typically, we wouldn't be talking, but we are talking. And we're talking about collaboration. We're talking about different projects in this space. So what really do you think is the unique elements of Web3 that is enabling this transition? We talked a lot about value. We decentralize value. Previously in a Web2 world, everything is centralized. So that means, single parties had all the, power and value. And then the others were just, being used, whether it's for their data or to get their eyeballs on whatever headlines. So how is it different with Web3, and what is the reward systems here, and what makes people so engaged?
In every industry, you have this kind of S curve, when things started. Also, Web2 in the beginning was very collaborative. If you look at Silicon Valley, Israel also, from my experience, super collaborative in the beginning. Everything was open sourced. So it's the same kind of, I will say, mechanism of how do you build new industry. In the beginning, because there is no market, we need to work together to build a market. And I hope it will stay like this, but I think the more companies will enter Web3, it will be more traditional. Hopefully not with our work. People will build also communities, but that's very natural that in the beginning, people will seek to meet like-minded people with the same values and building the industry. It's very logical. But Web3 is very different because it's built on public database, let's call it or public infrastructure, which means the blockchain, right? And it killed the old modes of competition and, locking down people to certain technologies. And suddenly the code is open, your software, although it's not necessarily, but the underlying assumption is it's open. So it forces you to defend yourself in a different way. And I think one of the biggest differentiation is community, right? If everything is open and I can copy your code, right? Or I can integrate your code or whatever, what are you doing? And I can be part of your Discord, so I know what you're doing. And everybody has a roadmap, so I know also where you're going. What is your differentiator? Community. Or first mover, you're moving fast, or something like this. But I think in Web3, community is a big part. By the way, I will say also in the Web2 world, branding and community will become more and more the biggest game, because innovation is faster. Everybody can hire somebody in Fiverr and build something. With AI, you can build a company, I think, with AI today, from landing page to copy to even product in a way. So where can you win? Where can you be successful, right? It's about creating a place that people trust and want to come and enjoy and find themselves. So that's for me, maybe the why it's happening right now. And I also will say that this whole social media game, you're opening your Facebook or Instagram. In the beginning, it was you meeting your friends or family. Before your grandma joined Facebook. It was very cool. I remember the first day I opened Facebook. I didn't understand what is this. But still, I could connect with people that were my friends back then, and they're not living in Israel anymore or something like this, or I don't see them because I'm not in school. So it was very, you can say, community-based, right? The initial idea of Facebook is to connect to people around you. Today, if you will open social media, any social media, you will see influencers or people who pay, or they hack the system, or they're hacking your neural system, right? Dopamine or whatever. So it's becoming a hacking mechanism for society to sell products. And that's not fun anymore. It's addictive still. So it's still there. And I think yesterday, Facebook, or 2 days ago, Facebook released their quarterly reports. They are blooming. So it's still successful, but I think over time you're extracting the users because of the business model. I need to sell your data, and I need you to stay on the platform as much as you can. How do I keep you addicted? I think Web3 has a different kind of agenda right now, which means the I don't say ownership, but you can be here and you can also win. You can be part of the game, right? You can own part of the engagement, of the transaction, I don't need to sell my data and just to get content. And community means, I think in Web3, you can connect with like-minded people that believe in the same values, looking for meaning, looking for human connection, or looking to build something together. You don't have it in Facebook anymore. You don't have it in LinkedIn anymore. I just saw a post yesterday on LinkedIn. Somebody said, I don't remember the quote, but it was like, only the stupid posts are like winning, right? Like, and it's becoming like a hat. Yeah, like cats. Yeah, right. And so I think what Web3 has to offer to a lot of people is not every place, of course, and it's a very general statement what I'm going to say, but a feeling of a little bit home. Even the fact that we are talking right now because we were part of another community, CPG, it was for us enough to trust each other and say, hey, let's do something together. Like we are less risk averse and more open to work together. And that was for me mind blowing because I worked in, let's say, Web2 17 years. And suddenly I came to an event that I produced and people were like, how can we help each other? You don't see it in Web2. Something is attracting those kind of forces like change the world, which is very romantic, but it's also beautiful. And it's, I hope I answered your question. I took it to a different direction though.
No, that was actually a perfect answer. And I think there's a lot of things here to unpack, right? So one of the things that you brought up really like sparked my attention because you've mentioned, in a Web3 world, it's really hard to have a moat, right? Because essentially like any tech that you're going to produce, whether you're going to create token gated experiences or you're going to create like a mint button on your website, whatever it is, it's not that hard to imitate because all the code is open. You don't have exclusivity on creating an NFT marketplace. You don't have an exclusivity on creating a mint button or a token gated experience. But what makes the difference here is the brand. And the brand, the sum of the brand is its fans, right? The fans are in the center of the brand. That's what makes a brand a brand. It's the loyalty of its biggest supporters, people that are not willing to only buy the products from the brand, but also advocate for it. And similarly, you and I, like we're part of the CPG community. So with crypto packaged goods, you said it perfectly. Like we immediately had that trust because you're like, oh yeah, we're part of this group, only about 3,000 something people, right? That want to work, they want to build, they want to benefit others in the space. So let's collaborate on other projects. Now that's great. But what do brands do today? Like when we look at traditional brands entering the Web3 space, right? Like how does their perspective in terms of brand ownership, in terms of empowering their super fans will play out in the future? And how would that become the ultimate moat for any company?
Again, everything is being commoditized and cheaper over time, right? Think about hard disks, think about technology, AI, right? AI is almost free, which means you can be a creator right now. People can build businesses on top of Instagram. Those platforms enable a lot of creativity, which has also created a lot of noise. And so in the end, you, me, everyone in the Western world, we are exposed to around between 10 to 30,000 ads per day. Now, sometimes you don't see it as an ad. It could be a blog post, but it's an ad. Somebody's trying to sell you something. I believe we are busier than ever. Like we're becoming, it's like winning productivity, but in a way we also have more things trying to grab our attention, more channels than ever, right? Like everything is on Netflix, but there's nothing to watch. I just heard yesterday somebody say Netflix is where you watch trailers. It's like, but it's true. Yeah, and it's like we are overwhelmed with information. We're not having enough signal. And for brands, I think they're having even hard time because that's like you enter a new era when the Gen Z, Gen Alpha is going to win, the next 10 years. They are, somebody said yesterday, they are a blockchain Web3 native. They're being born into games and devices and experiences that I didn't have. Like I didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid until the age of 18, right? For them, it's like this is the status quo. probably Instagram looks like for old people. It's the TikTok and Roblox and those kind of things. This is the next, like Roblox is the next social media. So how do you tap into this kind of audience? I think this is the bigger question. Of course, this is the innovator dilemma. It's like Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera, but Kodak doesn't exist anymore. It was one of the most innovative companies in the history before, the internet of the era of the internet. They like send cameras to the moon. Imagine that. Kodak doesn't exist. So for brands to be relevant, they need to understand this new generation and start experimenting. And I think what's Nike is the forefront of Web3 as I see it. Very ambitious. I don't know the data. It's really from the outside, everything can be shiny. Maybe there is zero activation. But in the end, this kind of, if I look from the outside, suddenly brands give the authority to the user. And that's huge. First time in history of brands saying, hey, Sharon, you can take this piece of what you're creating, you can own it, which means you can earn money, you can sell it, but it has Nike on the digital asset, right? Basically, they create a platform when people can create digital assets, pictures or whatever, or for the metaverse or for social media. And if you sell it or buy it or create or whatever, you have a friction of this kind of creation. And that's huge because basically they say we are partners. And I cannot control you. I don't pay you salary. I don't tell you what to do, which is also very dangerous. Like people can do very stupid things also with the brand. So it's very courageous to say, hey, we're going to give authority to people to play the game with us and have a voice, not only as a consumer, but also as a producer. And that changes the whole forces of the market. Because if you look at the Bored Ape Yacht Club as an example, which is, people can say it's a PNG project or PFP or profile picture project, fine. But they are collaborating with Tiffany & Co., Adidas. They have a fast food chain, or from food to beverage to music to art. That becomes what I call culture platform.
And here's a good point that you bring up exactly. Like the BAYC example is fantastic. You mentioned the restaurant. What I really like about the restaurant, it wasn't actually created by the BAYC company. It was one of the owners of the NFTs, and he had the IP right for that NFTs. So he created a restaurant themed with BAYC, and he was completely allowed to. And this is where, people, as you said, like you're giving a lot of power, right, ultimately to your fans. Because as I said, people do crazy things. They could use the brand. So there's that negative aspect. But then the positive aspect, you just empowered someone. He was able to put his life savings into a passion project. He wanted to open a restaurant. But now he had the right branding elements to do it, to make him an instant success. And, that's so empowering for the individual, right? Like any technology, it could be used for good, it could be used for bad. And there's mechanisms being developed. And the only way for us to actually learn from the space is to like fail fast and kind of like experiment and see where's the breaking points and then avoid reaching there. But we cannot get there without being courageous, right? Like Nike's doing, right? So I find that really fascinating. And so the latest stats tells us like out of the 100 top like interbrand valued brands in the world, 43 have launched like NFT projects within the last 12 months, right? And we've seen projects that are like successful, right? And we've seen projects flop. So in your opinion, you are a keen observer and analyst of this space. Like what makes a project successful for a brand? What makes it flop? Like how do they resonate with Web3 minded communities?
That's a good question. If I try to answer it, because you can start from different direction, I will look at culture. And which means it's not about the NFT. It's about what is your intention? What are you trying to do with your kind of fans or audience or customers? How does it resonate with them? And some people will buy it, like there is, I think, two kind of audiences. One will buy to make money in the future. So it's speculation, By the way, there's a whole story about how Marvel got bankrupt in 96 because of speculation of buying their, books, like comics books. which is very dangerous in the end, just speculation. You buy some kind of a piece of art just to sell it in 2 years so you can become richer, which is a lot of NFT projects. I think it's about innovation. So you give the authority to community to innovate. I call it open innovation. And that's the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Basically, they said, hey, the IP is open, right? You can do whatever you want. There is no limitation, probably. I didn't read the whole terms and condition, but basically you can do whatever you want. But there is a barrier. And that's important. The barrier is like you need to pay, back then it was, between 100K to, $500,000 to be part of the game. So it was like a filtering mechanism. People are going to be here probably. They can do something meaningful with this, which again, most of them didn't, I believe, but some of them created businesses, like the One Republic, the lead singer, he created a brand of music out of it. So if you, I'm coming back to your question, I think successful brands will extend what does it mean for them from their core story. So you're not just releasing NFT and it's meaningless. Like, how do you take your audience into be part of your story? For example, if you look at the Starbucks loyalty program, and they said, hey, you're going to get, instead of points, you're going to get digital collectibles, which is basically NFT. And you can do things with them. You can get access to certain events and content. You can fly to our farm in Latin America somewhere and see how the coffee is being grown. So what they are doing, they take the core story and what they believe and start building experiences, right? Is it digital or phygital? And collaboration, I think, in the future that extend the core story of who they are and what they can offer. I think this is huge. Another example can be MasterCard. They collaborate with Polygon to create incubator or accelerator. It's different places. I don't know if it's incubator or accelerator, doesn't matter, for digital artists, music artists, to help them to go into Web3, to create more ownership and more successful businesses. Now, I don't know if people understood what I just said. A traditional financial company that has nothing to do to culture created an accelerator in the US for musicians. This is huge. So basically, I think Web3 is about culture. Web3 is about storytelling. Web3 is about you're being part of the story, right? You're being exposed to more exclusive, limited edition of experiences. This is what's all about. And now brands need to innovate, like who they are. Am I selling a car, or am I selling a story, a vision, or experience? And am I selling a coffee, or right? Like, what is my identity? And I think that's a crisis of identity. And Nike probably see themselves like bigger than selling a shoe. They are changing culture. So that's for me what's missing for a lot of projects. Like, where do I come from? What I'm trying to create to the world, what I believe in, and which kind of experience, which is not necessarily core business, I'm going to integrate.
Wow, that is like so mind-blowing, because like honestly, like the applications of culture does not only apply to luxury brands, but I mean, obviously luxury brands are the first movers to the space because they realize that. The only reason like, you know, Louis Vuitton could charge how much they charge for their bags, it's because the brand, the history, the culture. Gucci, similarly. So they've kind of like jumped onto it. Let's cultivate that culture. Let's be the innovators. Let's like collaborate with artists. And you notice all their collaboration is based on art. It's based on music. It's based on even athletics, like whatever it is, like they're in that space of culture. And I find that really like fascinating. But I also see the government sectors as well, like flirting as well with the culture aspect, because like Thailand, for example, is doing these touristic spots where people can redeem NFTs and they can be part of this like Thailand experience, right? Yes, a lot of them are like these PR more related kind of activations, but I see how it can transcend to something a bit more, right? Like you are building pockets of communities that have common interests. And also it creates kind of bragging rights, because if I'm part of like the Gucci, let's say Genesis Pass access, I get access to fashion events exclusively, I get access to products, I get access to things that other people don't get access to, but also the community of similar people, fashion forward thinking people, then I'm like in good place. I can be inspired by the right people instead of me like, getting Facebook or TikTok algorithms pushing ads that I don't care about on me, right? So this is like, I think the big like transition and change in the way we view Web3. But then there is a double-edged sword, and this is leading to the second question. So, people can turn against you. We know that. Like, you do the wrong thing as a brand and you can be like destroyed, plummeted. So how do you avoid these pitfalls? And, we know the Moonbirds example, right? Like Moonbirds was like one of the top projects, like, and still like there are great guys that built it, but they changed like the IP clause on their collections where they made it open source, and, the holders were pissed off and they were not consulted on this decision. And this is interesting because someday as a CEO of a company, you have to consult your fans. You cannot take decisions on your own. So what is the impact? What are the implications here?
So I think it's very challenging, because if I look at an NFT project, the promise is you are part of it from the get-go, right? But when you buy Nike in the store, you don't say, I'm part of Nike, sadly. So I think that's very confusing. If you change the rules of the game suddenly as a native Web3 project, people can be pissed off because time to feedback is zero, right? If tomorrow you change the pricing or you release a new shoe, I don't know about it. Let's say, Adidas, okay? I don't know if you release a new something. It's on social media. Okay, I have so many things on social media. But if you look at an NFT project, I'm part of the Discord. So if you release something, I will know immediately, and I can, comment on this in matters of minutes. So I call it time to feedback is zero. And it means like people has opinion. And sometimes they also have ownership, like they have tokens, or, they can lose something, right? If you bought the NFT and for 100 euros and now the CEO of Yuga Lab changed the game, suddenly it's not 100 euro again, it's 20. So, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? I didn't agree to this. So the kind of mechanics is very different. I just heard, like, I remember a big game was closed a few days ago, and there were a lot of digital assets there that belongs to the company, and you create this whole world and now it's just gone. So there is an underlying, I think, assumption here that we didn't mention. It's what's called a wallet. And the wallet means I own things, so I can take it and move to another place. Let's say I wrote theoretically speaking, okay, I wrote a blog post on a Web3 native social media. I have 20,000 followers. Now, I know, my friend building another platform, I can theoretically move all my assets because it's mine and my like kind of open social graph or whatever it is to another platform. If you want to collaborate with different brands, let's say Armani with Nike, and I have the wallet, I can identify without creating a new identity in different platforms. I can take what I have in Armani. Let's say I have points in Armani. Now I can translate it into points in Nike, or unlock new experiences without identifying myself, creating two different kind of accounts or whatever. So collaboration is faster. Multi-tenancy is bigger because I can move between different places. Theoretically, again, it doesn't exist in most places. So for brands, the pitfall, I think, if you go and create something like Swoosh, right? And the promise is from the get-go, this is a community. The game has changed, which means time to feedback is different. People have stakes in what you do. They can lose, they can win. And I've heard from Web3 companies, like people suddenly pissed off because you changed something, because now their tokens worth less or more. It's like stakeholders in a way. So the relationship is more complicated, more complex, more channels, which means you need to have really think deeply about trust, because people can leave immediately. They don't care. Like there is another project, there is a lot of noise. They can own a piece of it and sell it and dump it. And how do you create a relationship which is not transactional? So people are not here to make more just to make money. They want to create, they want to collaborate, they want to be part of something, they want to get new experiences. And that's changing the way companies today work, and how do they see customers, right? Like, what does it mean, this relationship when, I don't know, Telegram or Discord or social media, suddenly I can say something and it can do something in the real world. I'm not a customer. It's not a static relationship. It's becoming a conversation. So I think the pitfall is start to look at your super fan differently and how you create conversation with them, right? I think that's starting from there, because I don't know what's the pitfall, but it starts with the conversation and being honest and transparent.
So it's fascinating for me now to see that the emphasis of culture brings the emphasis of community building. So I think the new generation of people entering the space, if you're looking to profession, if you're in the marketing space, is going to be like these chief culture officer, this community managers, because it takes a lot of time. It's exhausting, right? Like you have a community of 300 to some people have 30,000 people in their community. And these guys need moderators, engagers to communicate on behalf of the brand in a way that makes sure it's an inclusive process, to make sure that you're getting these feedbacks and acting on them accordingly. And this is where we get into this bigger scheme of blockchain technology and Web3, which is like DAOs and voting and semi-DAOs, and it gets really, really complex. So let's delve into that. But before we do that, I would like to delve through your experience, because I think it's very relevant. You build Web3 Labs. Today, how many members are you? And tell us a little bit about how that got started and how is it going and how do you manage it today? Because you have a lot of members daily active.
So as I said, it started as the beginning. Web Lab was after reading this, people bought a picture for $500,000. I said, okay, I want to gather some smart people around me and figure out why this is happening. Because it was like, for me, it was super new language. Like, what is this? What are you talking about? And there is really a language and jargon and kind of semantic into this world, and feels like a rabbit hole. In retrospect, I think it's a lot of bullshit, like 90%. You can boil it down to very few principles. But back then it was like, what is this? And I did a lot of research about the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and did, as I said, the first meetup that we had was April last year, 2022. And then it started another event. And I got a sense, hey, we can create a real community here. And again, what is for me real? People want to collaborate. The difference is, if you do an event and people come and listen, and that's it, it's not a community, it's just a lecture, right? Even if you do it every week, it's a lecture. But if there is also a reason why we should do something together, why we should co-create, then you have a community, right? And I can talk a lot about the history of community, but that's like the first principle of community is many-to-many conversation and collaboration. You facilitate many-to-many conversation and collaboration. What you will see, a lot of communities are being managed with one person, and this is his voice. It's not a community, it's a club. But that's another conversation. So that's like how we started. It's just to have fun. I think it was end of May, June. We said, okay, this is serious. Let's like go full thrust and I don't know, just explode. Fast forward, today we are in 4 cities in Europe. So it's Madrid, Berlin, Amsterdam, Lisbon, around 1,000 members. And when I say members, like depends how you count it and where you see, but that's like how many people are involved. We are around 25 people in the core team that supporting in different kind of values that they bring or capacity. And that was an amazing journey, very organic, and nothing like we didn't pay anyone to join or promise like tokens or, speculation. Is the first principle was about giving first. We are here to add value. We are here to bring meaning, to share knowledge. We are here to facilitate collaboration. So that was like the history of building WebLab. And again, it was more about the first principle. It's not something that you strategize really, because it's a relationship. You don't go to a date and have a strategy and it's like a plan for the next year. What are you going to do with this person? It's more about, hey, we are here. We want to meet you guys. We want to do cool things. We have a really great story. So for us, it's like entrepreneurs, which is very important to identify who's your audience, right? Who are you building it for? And what is the promise? I think this is the most critical questions for community building. Like, why are we here, right? And if it's only for drinks, it's not a community, by the way. It's just having fun. And the idea is we want to support entrepreneurs because the majority, I think 80% or 90% of the people at the core team are entrepreneurs. We're building stuff. Web2, Web3, doesn't matter. We're entrepreneurs by nature. So we want to help ourselves. It's very authentic. We didn't build a community for somebody else. I was building a community because I was surrounding myself with smart, capable people, right? So I think if you look at the journey, it was very, very authentic to not honestly build it. Like you start gather people. You don't really build a community, by the way. It's like you start. For me, it's like you putting like a party and then see if people coming. Right? You don't know what's going to happen. And the idea was to simplify as much as we can. So using one channel like Telegram and not Discord, having a very fun event so people are welcome from different kind of places. So to simplify and create really interesting, fun experiences for people, like we had music in our event and we made pizza on like in the event itself, we made pizza and different kind of cool videos, and the brand really invested a lot of the look and feel of what we are doing because it's a voice. It's more important than a brand, like a product or a service. It's like people come because they want to feel something, right? It's not tangible. It's not like you getting out from the event or the hackathon and you have like a shoe. So it's very emotional journey. And how do you create this emotional journey and trust? So most of it was like really to listen to people and to connect with them and to see how we can help. Not every time it's successful. I'm not saying it's perfect. Community is very messy. But if you think about it, it's like thinking like another relationship, but more scalable. And things just happen naturally, to be honest. It's not like I have a plan, like I want to expand to 4 cities. Like, let's see. And then people start to gather. I know it sounds like very romantic, but that's like the nature of community. That's the nature of human beings.
Absolutely. But there's another element here, right? So that I found really fascinating. And I want to understand how you managed to do this. Because ultimately, if I want to belong to any tribe, I want to be in the cool tribe, right? Like I don't want to be in the tribe with, people that I don't want to associate with. So something that I found fascinating about your community, you had a lot of great people from all around the world, like really like the quality of people as well that are active and engaging. I was shocked because I started like scheduling calls with some of them to get to know them one-on-one. And you have guys who are building like really innovative, like metaverses, to people that are building amazing NFT projects, to strategists, work for Nike, for Coca-Cola. So like you obviously did something right in like at least bringing the initial right people in place that made the place more attractive for similar like-minded people, right? Like this is the initial seed that you have placed that cultivated these kind of like, it kind of spiraled around that, like just a spiral of excellence, I would say, because there's a lot of great people. So how did you manage to do that? Like what was your strategy?
It's really little things. For example, when people come to our event, we greet them. Hey, how are you? Shaking their hands. This is what's going to happen. And it feels, I don't know, if you go to most of the events, you just enter like, I don't know anyone, like, what is this? And I came from Meetup and I'm new. So really giving them the feel of we see you, we care about you, right? So it's the little things, and be very responsive on Telegram most of the time. It's also hard. So there are a lot of really think about how do you treat people as humans, as how do we nurture the relationship. But more than anything else, I think it was we started in real life. And the reason is I was learning a lot about social movements and how things like Black Lives Matters or social changes, Twitter, Facebook, a lot of things that we use daily, how did they start? We think about that those kind of movements are viral, which is not true. When they started very local. Most of the time, people knew each other. And that's very critical because if you want to create any movement, you need to start with the peripheral of the network where there is less influence from the core. The core is very traditional. It's like any innovation, don't start with the core, you're going to get like pushback. And the way we did it, we thought about, okay, what is our brand? Like, what do we stand for? Let's do the creative, like, how Meetup looks, how our blog posts, the language, the tone of voice, like really think as a traditional marketing, like who we are, do we identify with? And it changed over time, but we paid a lot of attention to our creative work to tell a story, right? And the story is like the copy, the story is the creative, like the assets itself, the creative assets. And then the event itself, how do we make it special? As I said, we had podcast in the event and pizza and music and really greeting people. But I think the real big change that most of the people are not even capable of executing is in real life experience. Because in order to build trust, we need to smell each other. Why? We were used to live up until recently, like thousands of years, in a group of between 100 to 300 people. Trust is very fundamental for survival. If I don't trust you, I need to consume more energy. I need to think more. So trust is just relaxing myself. I know I can work with you. We don't need to fight each other. So then we can facilitate collaboration, hunting, gathering, raising kids, whatever, right? So trust is essential. And the way we like our body sense it is through your voice and through your smell. And when you bring people in real life, it's like trust is in a trajectory to explode. In online, you just a picture. And in Web3, you're a pixel picture. I don't know what's your intention. There's a lot of fraud. So I think our community grew really fast because we invested a lot in trust. And mostly because it's in real life, which is not scalable in the beginning. Like you need to meet people and talk to them. I think that was the magic. Our intention, like why are we here? Our story, right? And in different channels, story in the event and social media. But in the end, it's about in real life experience. Because I was lost in Discord, to be honest, when I joined different communities, like, what is this? GM, who are you? Sometimes it's a kid, sometimes it's a fraud. Like, what is this? I want to meet people. It also was the right timing because it was right after COVID. So people were like looking to connect again, right?
Yeah, and I think this is one of the reasons you're right. Like COVID played a role as well in the emergence of like Web3 communities because it was a period where people wanted to get creative, they wanted to express themselves, and NFTs created that venue where you can like start communicating with people again. You can start doing things. But I really like what you focused on here, and I really want to touch upon that as well. You really looked at Web3 as a complementing technology to basically normal experiences in real life or using Web2. You guys hold like conference calls. That's how we met. We arranged like a Zoom call and we had a good conversation and then, we kind of connected. So it's not really about displacing normal human interactions for us to all be drones plugged into the metaverse, right? A lot of people assume that, right? That's the problem. There's a big association because we mentioned Roblox, we mentioned like Fortnite. A lot of people are using like activations in metaverse, like environments, but it's not all about that. That's just one venue for human interactions. There's still physical events. There's NFT Paris, NFC in Lisbon. There's a lot of these great events globally that people congregate to and they meet and they have these common goals. And I think this is like what we're talking really about is like the core of it is think of it. What I'm getting from you is that you have to think of it as like any normal branding activity. You're building a brand, you're building a story, and then you must constantly deliver on the brand, because if you continuously deliver on what you say you're going to do, that's when you build your community.
By the way, that's exactly, yeah. It's like when I talk about this and I say, what is brand? Brand is a promise that over time is being fulfilled constantly. That's a brand. But whatever you do, of course there is the visuals and the copy. That's how you articulate. Because everybody can sell cereals. You can go to a factory, say white label, and you have a cereal. You say, hey, I have a community, I have a PFP. You can pay people to build your NFT project. But what is the promise? Why are we here? And that's traditional. It's traditional. I don't think it's traditional. That's storytelling. That's critical for success. Very big part of it, because innovation becoming cheaper and easier. So where can you innovate? In the human interaction and the human experience. And that's where we focused and excelled. Because I'm not Web3 native. I'm more about the human part and how the technology can leverage it. Because in 2 years, it's going to be Web 4. I don't know. Nobody's going to remember. Who said Web 2? Just because there is Web 3. You didn't use Web 2. This is the internet and that's it.
Exactly. So exactly. We use the terms Web 3, Web 2, I think a lot of people, just to kind of distinguish decentralization from non-decentralization and the effects of it. So maybe it's worth talking about that a little bit, right? So I buy an NFT, for example, from Bored Apes Yacht Club or from Tiffany or from whoever. Then I have this PFP, right? Cool. I can use it as a profile picture. It's kind of signaling to other members that, hey, I'm part of this community. That's great. They follow each other. Fantastic. But then it also acts like a digital key that can unlock physical experiences, digital experiences. How does that work? We want to address the people that are not really familiar with this space. So how does that technology work, and how do you use it creatively? And why do you see it as a driving force here for this exclusivity?
I'm coming back to what I said. We are exposed to so many opportunities, right? You can order food, sex, entertainment, even friends from your phone. That's insane. So everything is a click away. And when you have so much abundance and so limited attention and waking hours and how much you can invest, exclusivity is key. Because exclusivity also signals who you are. It's part of, we as humans, we need to identify ourselves as something. That's why there is logos and brands. It's like Patagonia, right? Patagonia stands for something. Oatly stands for something. Nike. And that's why they're so successful. Because what they did basically, they became a little bit part of our identity. And for some people, it's their identity. PFP took it to the next level. PFP means this is my identity. I'm an ape. Nobody said I'm a Nike. I'm a Hilton. Right? But suddenly people identify themselves with the tribe. And the tribe stands for something, and it can be exposed, explode to different kind of directions. And I think at the core, it's because they build culture. Now, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I'm not trying to evaluate evaluate the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I'm just saying, if you manage to create this is part of your identity, and that's basically what's going to happen. It's already happening in what we call the metaverse. Instagram, it's part of your identity. You share stories, and who are your friends? What do you wear? Where are you? What is your profile picture? Basically, this is your digital identity. It's not separated from who you are. And I think NFT projects, or let's say digital collectibles, right, or digital assets, it's an extension of who you are. It gives you're also signaling to the rest of the world, I'm part of this. That's what I believe in, right? And we need it when everything is possible. Everything is click away. Who am I? What do I believe in? What is meaning for me? Meaning doesn't need to be serious, like I'm a philosopher and I believe in and I want to change the world. Meaning can be, hey, I love this whatever, like actress, right? I believe in her, what she stands for, and it could be even stupid. It doesn't matter. I'm not into the content. I'm into like how we operate as humans in a digital world when everything is possible, almost everything. It's like I was thinking about myself as a kid. We had, I don't know, like 3-4 restaurants in the city. Theater was like expensive. You just hang outside all day long with your ball, playing soccer, and that's it. Now you have endless games and endless channels as a kid. And the Roblox becomes part of their identity. So who we are as humans suddenly become more flexible. And if you look at it as PFP, it's wrong. You should look at it as like identity and social signaling. What I believe in, who am I, what is my tribe, and why is this? That's also a very interesting question. Up until recently, like 56 years ago, most of humanity were religion, especially 100 years ago. So the core story was either the Bible or something similar for different people, right? Muslim, Christian, whatever you are, doesn't matter. You have like kind of a story, and everybody believe, and there is ceremonies and kind of rhythm and explanation of the world phenomena, especially 300 years ago, before the Enlightenment era started and science. This story is declining. How many people go to ceremonies like in the Western world, right? And we are searching for this tribe. And suddenly Web3 gives you this kind of tribiness and digital worlds. It's a way to reconnect to another human and create meaning. That's the real opportunity, as I see it.
I think you beautifully put it in that way. Like, it's honestly true. Because if you are still among any religious community, you understand really like the meaning of community. Because if you're still part of that, you don't have that thing missing from you. You have that spiritual connection. You have that cultural connection with so many other people that you can unite with, whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever it is. Like, you can relate to a big group of people. But if you have, moved beyond that, and some people are more right now not religious, like I lived in Sweden, majority of society is completely not religious. So then you have, what do I associate with? Okay, yeah, a fellow Swedish person, but that's not unique enough. We're varied as humans. There's so many nuances, right? So it's not like as we don't do the same rituals, we don't do the same. So what becomes that is, again, this is where Web3 is kind of coming in and saying, well, here's an area for you to kind of like connect with other people, regardless where they are geographically as well, or ethnically or anything like that. The connection is based on interest. And I think that's very unique. There's like a unity on a broader scale than just like, ethno-racial or religious like bonds, right? And I think that's very cool. So we explore the space, and then you've mentioned the metaverse earlier, right? Like Gen Z are on Roblox, and that's becoming their identity. And now we're seeing there's an intersection between Web3 and the metaverse, right? Like that intersect. Why is there intersection there? Does it have to do with true digital ownership? What does that mean in a expanding metaverse world?
I think what's happening, there is no one identity anymore. We are playing so many roles in our society: digital, physical, parenthood, whatever. You go to work, you have different kind of associations, communities. You're not one person anymore, as it used to be. You're very complicated and complex being, most of us. And the next generation is going to be, because you can basically be a woman if you want. You just change your identity in the digital world, and you interact with people as a new gender or new color or whatever, right? And that's, an alien or a monkey. And I think what Web3 is doing for the metaverse, that metaverse is a very generic thing, but Facebook is also a metaverse. It's a digital world and a digital experience, right? But Facebook belongs to Facebook. The post, your pictures belongs to Facebook. So if Facebook doesn't like you, which can happen to a lot of businesses, by the way, and I know a lot of stories, they can kick you off from the platform. because it's their platform. The Web3 come and say, hey, you own, it's yours, the data, the picture, the assets, the toys that you bought on this game, the gear, whatever it is, you bought it, which means you can sell it. Yeah, you can transfer it, you can lend it, you can make money out of it, you can maybe change it, right? So suddenly I'm a real creator, which means I can do things and earn and create, which I couldn't in the past. And so that's changed what we call, I think that if we simplify the metaverse, it's a digital world, which means the digital assets that are there, picture, whatever you call, like the utilities that you're using are suddenly not owning by the platform. It's owning by the community. And that create new markets, new possibilities. I can take my followers to another, theoretically, to another platform, which makes me, imagine, like the power of Facebook is because we are in there. We are the citizens. We own it, not Facebook. If we stop commenting, there's no Facebook anymore, right? So now it really gives me the ownership that, wow, this is really mine. I can vote, I can do things, I can change the game. If there is a DAO or a forum, I can create coalitions, I can create tools, I can sell tools. So that's changing how games are going to look like. I think still Roblox is very Web2, if I'm not mistaken, and they own the assets. But the next game are going to give kids of course you can create games, right? But imagine you own the game or the world or the tools of what being sold. That's a new whole business models. That's a whole new kind of interaction. And I think this is the promise of Web3. By the way, the biggest thing after DeFi in Web3 is gaming. And gaming is huge. If you take media, like I think if you take like theater and TV combined, gaming is bigger.
This is the incredible part, right? Like that people are really underestimating like how big is the gaming industry. Because if you look at like Ralph Lauren, you look at Armani, you look at you name it, Gucci, everyone is jumping to the gaming world, right? And we have the Sandbox today that is really Web3 friendly. We have Decentraland, very Web3 friendly, Web3 based, not even friendly, right? We can buy your own parcel of land. You have true ownership of that parcel. Nobody can stop you. You can rent it. You can build on it. You can, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we also got all these reports about low engagements in these metaverses, right? Like we all heard about the reports on Decentraland, like 16 active users or whatever that figure is, right? Unless there's like a big event happening. So in a world where we see like gaming intersecting with Web3 and we see a growing brand interest in having their products in that space, you know, Adidas launched Gear, a whole line of digital products, a new revenue stream altogether. Where do you see the space growing, right? Like beyond these like flashy, like, you know, activations, what is your take on the whole, like the digitization of human experiences? Because your focus is very on the physical one. And I know that's something you like. So how do you see that other side of it?
I think the reason I'm focusing on real life, because if you want to build an ecosystem as business people, you need to meet. And that's why you flew to Paris, right? You need to see the person, although we didn't meet yet, but it's necessary. So, but if you want to play and enjoy in real online is great. Like you don't need it. People still need we are flesh, like we need this physical interaction, right? Hormones and everything, like your body is built for it. You cannot ignore it. It's not going to change anytime soon. I think, again, digital worlds are an extension of our experience, because suddenly, if you look at the Bored Ape Yacht Club guys, they were super young with not a lot of experience, anything to do to NFT. They knew zero about NFT. Not a coder, not an illustrator, but they were creative enough to imagine a new world. And by the way, Bored Ape Yacht Club is going to do most of their money from gaming. That's why they hired the former COO of Activation Blizzard, one of the biggest gaming company in the world, because they realize the future is gaming. Why? Kids are born into this world that's more immersive, more interesting, more dopamine. You can be whatever you want, right? And that's huge. You can earn money. You can build a business. And I think it will happen more, not because, it's logical, because this becomes the reality. And that's already reality. Netflix into gaming. Microsoft is into gaming, right? It's like, I think Amazon is next, because that's where the audience is. So brands needs to meet their audience where they are, right? Maybe now it's look like, okay, metaverse, like there's 70 users. By the way, there is a report, it's not the real data, but forget it for now. If you look at now, maybe I'm wrong. If you look 5 years from now, this generation, you're wrong if you say nothing is going to happen, right? It's just growing. It's growing and growing and growing. How it's going to look like, nobody knows. But the direction is gaming and metaverse for sure. Technology is changing and will make it more accessible, right? Like it reminds me when Steve Ballmer, the former CEO of Microsoft, said nobody's going to buy iPhone for 600 euros. I remember this time in
doesn't even have keypads.
Why?
he actually commented that he's like, it doesn't even have a keypad. It's like, yeah, that's the point.
Innovation is about, to dream what's possible. So if you look at history, you say it's not possible. Nobody's buying those things. Like everybody's looking for a cheap device, smaller and smaller. That was back then. I remember, like, if you were a really small device, you were really cool. That was the thing. And suddenly it changed. Why? We can talk about it. But the point is, you cannot judge innovation by data, because it can explode from different directions, like Corona. Nobody's like, okay, people saw it coming, but this is nature innovation or some lab somewhere. Like, you don't know where it's coming from. It's going to change the world. And I think where we can, tipping point when it's like, boom, becoming viral. And I think it's already happening. If you look at the market cap of gaming and who is entering into gaming and metaverse and Web3 and communities and the Accenture report that we talked about a few weeks ago, this is happening. It's not the future. Now, who's going to be part of it? You need to start building it right now, because it's moving so fast. Like, imagine that the Bored Ape Yacht Club market cap, they raised, what was it? Half $500 million, I think, for a valuation of $4 billion. Under 10 months of existing. They started in April 2021. March, they raised 450, right? Wow, that's like 10 months. You start the round way before. So what's the future holds? Of course, there's not a lot of Bored Ape Yacht Club, but the Doodle is a similar story. But that's what's possible.
I see parallels between the dot-com boom and what's happening today. If you see like the first mover advantage when the internet started rolling out was media companies. If you're doing media, you're doing entertainment, you definitely have to be in this space because it was the easiest, most obvious transition, right? You have like a magazine that is physical. It's the same graphics, just put it digital and boom. You have now content, you have blogs, you have, the explosion of that industry at an early stage. And I think it's the same thing now. Like, what Bored Ape Yacht Club, you bring it very beautifully. Like, they cultivated a community that was important, which meant they had a brand. That's very important. Now they have the community. Now they have the brand. Now let's bring the entertainment. Entertainment comes in. Doodles, same thing. Community, brand, gaming, boom. And now if you look at all the luxury brands, they're doing the same thing. Gucci has the Vault on the sandbox, and they're adding more gaming into it. Every brand, Louis Vuitton, have their own game. They're all jumping into gaming. And you just see it repeatedly over and over and over again. So it's definitely, that's where we're heading. That's where things are evolving. And you I think, summarized it nicely as well. Like, you have to really think about your future consumer. Right, the younger millennials, especially more so than the older millennials, and Gen Z are gaming native audiences that are in the space. They consume a lot of hours in that space, so you're more likely to reach them there than you would to reach them on Instagram, right? So things are changing. What can brands do now? Like the brands that haven't entered this space, well, what would you advise like startups entering the space, whatever brand they're in, right? Or if you are already an established brand that hasn't even dipped their toes yet in the Web3 gaming intersection, what is your advice? How to get started?
I think it's coming back to first principle. Art came before language. And that means the way we express ourselves and as beings, through pictures, through dreams. The Bible is part of it, like stories that explains the world. Story, I will say, it's part of our DNA. That's how we make sense of the vast information that we get into our sensory system. We need to create meanings, why things are happening, the hero journey, like how do we evolve? I will say we are a machine that's making the future any moment. We're just projecting what's possible, what we can do. And if you take this to the first principle, if you ask me what companies can do, is coming back to the first principle and start telling stories and hire creative people and give them the power, and building communities and giving them the power. Because I don't have the answer what, Nike should do. But Nike said, we are facilitators, right? That's the power of also Web2. Say, hey, Airbnb, I don't create hotels. I'm going to help you facilitate a very trusted, cheap way to rent your house. So Nike says, hey, I'm going to, in a very cheap, trusted way, to co-create. I don't know what's the answer, but I'm a facilitator. And I want to invest in creative. I want to invest in culture, because that's going to be the next differentiator. That's like what I believe in, storytelling. And so companies needs to hire more creative people, give them the power, more storytelling. That, by the way, that's the Board API Club. They say we are creative. We're going to invest in creativity. They need to go outside of the comfort zone and see how their core assets being translated into games, into digital experiences, into community building, into exploring collaboration with communities, right? Into exploring co-creation with other brands and expand what's possible, because there is limitation in the physical world, how far you can go. In the digital world, suddenly more things are possible for entertainment. Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, I can name a lot. Alibaba. They're all in entertainment business, Microsoft. Entertainment is fundamental for human society and culture. That's what connects us. That's the Bible, the synagogue, the whatever, like church, like Buddha. It's entertainment. So we need to go there, because now everybody can create any product almost with 3D printing in the future. Like everything is going to be possible. So how do you win the market? Subculture. That's next. You connect people it's going to be hard for them to connect and transact and co-create. You facilitate trust. And that's exactly why MasterCard, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong because I didn't talk to them, investing in culture, right? They want to own a piece of this culture change, to be part of it. Go to Nike Instagram right now. You don't see products. You see storytelling. Go to Apple Instagram right now. What do you see? Products? You see stories. The biggest creative people in the world right now understand it's about stories, gaming, entertainment. Right? I'm not saying it's cost effective, it's easy, like, you just need to hire people, it's going to work. You need to start with lease and think in a different way that the community can help, can innovate with you.
I think it's quite important, and honestly, like I cannot agree more than that. I struggled as an entrepreneur, trying to sell products, because I used to have my own e-commerce business that I was launching during the COVID time in 2020. And, the CAC cost and the GDPR compliance and the iPhone push to limit the Facebook pixel has really skyrocketed the cost. Before I used to spend like $10, I would get like 10 leads, or at the beginning before I optimized my score. And then the $10 was getting me now like 20 leads and then 30 leads. And then suddenly a switch happened. And then suddenly $10 barely can get me like good solid 3 leads. And it's getting worse and worse. And the cost is increasing. And as a marketeer, a digital marketeer, that was the doom of my existence as a small business owner, because I don't have tons of emails to create great lookalike audiences. I depended on Facebook Pixel to gather the right data for me to push my product to my consumers. So then I just realized, I'm like, what did I do wrong? I've spent all these thousands of dollars in paid media that is no longer helping me like sell. But if I'd focused on culture building, if I focused on brand building, if I focused on cultivating organic experiences, I would have had a much better return on investment than any paid media figure that I would have put, right? And they've done the math on that. The math today tells you the ROI on organic engagements is about 650 times higher per dollar spent than paid media, and has about 4 times the brand lift than paid media. And I think for a lot of even younger startups, smaller startups, instead of wasting your budget on actually like getting paid media, focus your budget on cultivating a community, creating that storytelling, building this, because this will pay off on the long run, and it'll be much cheaper for you to generate good organic traffic. And I think this is where Web3 is heading. And I've seen you, and this is how we're really connected, you and I. It's like the first time I heard you talk about consumer-generated brands. And what does consumer-generated brands mean? And this is one of the reasons why I entered the NFT space to start with. So tell me more about consumer-generated brands. What is that concept? What does it entail for brands?
Comes to the original idea of open innovation. Like, you don't have the answer. Time to market is ridiculous. Cost of acquisition is ridiculous, right? It doesn't matter how much people you're going to hire. It's going to be always smarter people outside. That's why you have platforms like Apple or Google Play or Apple Store. Like, they can't hire those people to create those all applications. Say, hey, we're going to facilitate trust. We're going to enable you to create. We're going to take a lot of margin. This is another conversation. But you can look at it as a consumer or customer or community generated brand. The people who build Apple, it's not a device, by the way. The device is enabler with the technology of GPS and other things to Spotify, YouTube, Waze to come alive. Uber cannot be possible without Apple, but vice versa, by the way. The value of Apple is based on how many people willing to invest in this platform. Okay. Now think about Nike. I'm a consumer. The only thing I can do is buy. And now how big is the brand or their marketing so they can take higher margin and create more exclusive products? That's where probably they make the money. Or they can move their production to a cheaper place, right? Labor. But now I'm saying, if you create a very exclusive, interesting, relevant, meaningful experience for people, you can have higher margin because you deliver more value, right? But how do you do that? So I will argue, and that's what the Board API did. They said, hey, our IP is open. Also Doodles. Up to a certain point, it's open in the Doodles. You can do whatever you want. We know we attracted professionals, or we tried because it's exclusive, pricing, whatever. So probably people are here smart enough to do something good. And now we're giving you the permission to do things as community and think creatively. What are you going to create, right? And I think that's when I say you can hire a team of 5 people, 10, 20 people to innovate, or you can build a community and facilitate trust. Now, by the way, my background is platform design. That's how I also see communities. So platform design, it means like, how do you bring different partners? Airbnb is a tenant and and a household. So tenant and a household owner. So how do you create this kind of trust so people can transact faster, cheaper, more efficient? But that's also a community. If you create this trusted place, saying you and I can do something that without this community wasn't possible. So we can generate new ideas based on an existing IP, like the apes, the doodle, the Nikes, that's huge. And I think, not only I think, I thought it before I saw the Accenture report, the future belongs to brands going to be built by communities. Because time to feedback is faster, time to market is faster, it's more authentic, it's built by people who have stakes in the game. It's not only consumers. The feedback is more authentic, the signal is more clear. It's not a focus group. Hey, I'm going to build it because I'm going to own it. I'm going to create business out of it. It's real. It's not like theoretically what I think, right? And so my point is, what you will see more, and that's what Nike is doing. I think they're the only one that's doing it really, really good from the outside. Again, they're giving me the permission to build Nike. That's like unheard. It's not really true, but open source, it's very similar. Like you give people permission to build, and then you can commercialize part of this thing. So it's very similar. But again, it means if you facilitate with the right story, the right structure, the right people, with the right why are we here, you can create products that nobody can create before. That's the power of community or customer generated brand. We can co-create together and own part of this wealth that we're going to create. And that's what Web3 is enabling.
Wow, that is like amazing. I love the analogies. I love the way you can actually like put these complex perspective in such simple matters, because like you put it perfectly, like Apple would not be Apple without the ecosystem of builders, and these builders would not be part of the ecosystem. They would not be like the companies they are without Apple facilitating the platform for them, right? So it's kind of like this marketplace with two-sided players, the developers and the users, and they're giving you that. And now it's a lot more democratized. And, the summary that I get from our entire conversation today is that it's truly a democratizing power. Like it's to the principles of complete democracy, like which is crazy because it has that political aspect. We talk about culture and it's all interrelated. It's not separate. And he talked about complex system theories, which is something you're really fascinated about. And it's amazing to see the evolution of human culture adapting to the technologies we create. So to wrap up our conversation, it has been like insanely insightful, but I just want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you and who can you help and who's your target audience with Web Lab Studios. And you have also Lab Studios, which is another branch of your venture. So tell us about that and tell the audience how can they reach out to you and what can you help them with?
Yeah, so first, mostly I'm active on LinkedIn. That's the best way to connect with me, and Telegram. But Telegram is more like to engage with the community. LinkedIn is the best because that's where also I share my thoughts. So that's one. Of course, we have 4 communities, so everybody listening who want to be part of it as participator or to collaborate, to innovate on Web3 entrepreneurship and build this ecosystem is invited. So we have Telegram, meetups, those kind of things. Just look at WebLab and you will find it's very easy. The other thing that we are doing, we are creating Lab Studios. Lab Studios basically takes everything that I said and put it into practice. Put it simply, like how do you create super fan communities and build new experiences, new tools, new technology that will enable you to create culture? And I call it cultural platform. Instead of looking at yourself, I'm selling products, I'm creating culture. And it can go wild through an hackathon with your community or to build a platform that people can own part of the IP and co-create, or just a new in real life event that bring people together in a fun, meaningful way. So you don't need to create community from the get-go. Like how do you start doing this baby steps? And that's what we are doing with different partners and a collective of experts with hands-on experience. We are helping brands, and our focus right now is fashion and consumer goods, but this is just because it's easier for us. We are open to other thing. And also the cross-collaboration, like how Nike and Mars or Nike and, Albert Heijn, a supermarket in the Netherlands, can co-create. I think it's possible through this technology. And that brings a lot of new possibilities that you need to be very creative about how the future is going to look like. It's not about what happened in the past. Like nobody thought about the Bored Ape Yacht Club before that. So that's what we do as a collective, as experts, from phygital to metaverse to NFT to token gated community, with also zero code. Like how do we bring this technology to zero time MVP, I will say, or experiment in matters of days instead of, you don't need to create a whole team and hire people and you don't know what is Web3. We are like community as a service, I will say. Team of experts helping brands to build their super fan community in a very creative way, not a cookie cutter loyalty program. That's the problem we're trying to solve. How the future is going to look like for society and brands, the intersection between them.
Amazing. So I will put also the links in the description of the podcast and on the YouTube channel as well, so everyone can just immediately connect with Sharon and learn more. I highly recommend you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. You're a brilliant human being. And it was a privilege really to learn a lot because, we talk, but we never talked in this depth before. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.